Where did COVID-19 come from? This question has sparked intense debate and countless investigations since the pandemic began. Today, we're diving deep into what science tells us about the origins of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that changed our world. Let's separate fact from fiction and explore the leading scientific theories. To understand the origin, we first need to understand the virus itself. SARS-CoV-2 is a type of coronavirus, a large family of viruses common in animals like bats, camels, and civets. Sometimes, these viruses can jump from animals to humans in a process called zoonotic spillover. This isn't a new phenomenon. Other major outbreaks, like SARS in 2002 and MERS in 2012, were also caused by coronaviruses that originated in animals. So, what's the evidence for a natural origin of COVID-19? The trail leads us to the Wuhan seafood wholesale market in Wuhan, China. Many of the earliest known cases were linked to this market, which sold not only seafood, but also a variety of live wild animals. This environment, with many different species in close contact with each other and with humans, is the perfect breeding ground for a virus to jump species. They found it was incredibly similar to coronaviruses found in bats, by one specific virus found in horseshoe bats in Yunnan province. Often, there's an intermediate host involved. For the original SARS outbreak, the intermediate host was the palm civets. For COVID-19, the search for this intermediate host is still ongoing. Some studies have pointed to pangolins as they can be infected with coronaviruses that have some key similarities to SARS-CoV-2, especially in the part of the virus that binds to human cells. However, the connection isn't as direct as with the civets in the first SARS outbreak. The hypothesis is that a bat virus infected an intermediate animal, perhaps a pangolin or another species sold at the Wuhan market. While living in this animal, the virus mutated slightly, gaining the ability to infect humans efficiently. Then, an unlucky person at the market came into contact with this infected animal, and the first human infection occurred. From there, human-to-human transmission began, and the rest is history. Genetic analysis supports this timeline. Researchers have looked at the diversity of the virus in the early days of the outbreak. Their findings suggest there were likely at least 2 separate spillover events from animals to humans at the Wuhan market. This makes the market a much more likely origin point than a single, isolated incident somewhere else. The geographic clustering of early cases around the market is another strong piece of evidence. Now, let's talk about the other major theory, the lab leak hypothesis. This theory suggests that the virus originated in a laboratory, specifically the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a world-class research facility that studies coronaviruses. The idea is that the virus could have accidentally escaped from the lab and infected a staff member, who then spread it to the community. Why did this theory gain traction? Wuhan Institute of Virology is located in the same city where the outbreak began, which is a significant coincidence. The lab also works with bat coronaviruses. So, what does the evidence say about this? Well, so far, there is no direct evidence to support a lab leak. International teams of scientists, including from the World Health Organization, have visited Wuhan and reviewed the lab's safety protocols, records, and data. They have found no proof of a leak. The lab staff have been tested for antibodies, and none have shown signs of prior infection that could be traced back to the beginning of the outbreak. Furthermore, the genetic structure of SARS-CoV-2 doesn't show the typical signs of man-made manipulation. If scientists had built this virus in a lab, they likely would have used known genetic backbones and tools. However, The genome of SARS-CoV-2 doesn't match any previously published viral backbones. Its unique features, like the furin cleavage site which helps it enter human cells so effectively, appear to be the product of natural evolution. Similar features have been found in other naturally occurring coronaviruses. If you're finding this breakdown of the science interesting, please take a moment to hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the topics that matter. Your support helps us create more content like this. So, to recap the scientific standpoint, the weight of the evidence currently points towards a natural origin. The proximity of early cases to a market selling live wild animals, the genetic similarity of the virus to bat coronaviruses, and the patterns of early transmission all support a zoonotic spillover event, possibly involving an intermediate host. In contrast, the lab leak hypothesis remains a possibility, but lacks direct evidence. By the location of the Virology Institute. While we can't rule it out completely without 100% transparency and access to all data, it is not the explanation that the current scientific data favors. The scientific community, by and large, agrees that a natural origin is the most plausible scenario based on what we know today. It's important to understand why figuring this out is so crucial. This isn't about placing blame. If the virus came from the wildlife trade, then we need to implement much stricter regulations on these markets and on human-animal interactions. We need better surveillance of viruses circulating in animal populations to catch potential threats before they spill over. If, on the other hand, it did come from a lab, we would need a global overhaul of biosafety and biosecurity. Protocols for laboratories that work with dangerous pathogens. Both scenarios require different solutions, and that's why finding the true origin is a matter of global public health security. The search for answers continues. Scientists around the world are still sampling animal populations, analyzing wastewater data from the early days of the pandemic, and re-examining clinical samples to find that patient zero or the elusive intermediate host. It's a difficult process. For example, it took over a decade to definitively pinpoint the bat populations that were the source of the original SARS virus. We need to be patient as science does its work. The origin of COVID-19 is a complex scientific mystery with major global implications. While the lab leak theory remains a topic of discussion, the vast majority of scientific evidence collected so far points towards a natural origin, likely a zoonotic spillover from bats to humans, possibly through an intermediate animal at the Wuhan market in Wuhan. Understanding this origin is key to safeguarding our future against similar pandemics. As new evidence emerges, our understanding may evolve.